The night she ended us, my fiancé stood in the middle of our living room, laughing, and said, "Of course you matter. Why else would I have agreed to marry you?" And somehow, that was the cruelest thing she'd ever said to me. But to understand why those words cut so deep, I have to take you back. Back 5 years, to a freshman seminar in a stuffy lecture hall that smelled like burnt coffee and dry erase markers. That's where I first saw Vanessa. She was sitting 2 rows ahead of me, arguing with the professor about some point in the reading, completely unafraid, completely sure of herself. And I remember thinking that I had never met anyone who took up space in a room the way she did. I was the opposite of that. I was the quiet one, the one who color-coded his notes and apologized when other people bumped into me. People always told me I was sensitive, and they didn't always mean it kindly. I cried at movies. I remembered birthdays. I was, as my own dad used to put it with a shrug, a bit of a softie. So when this fearless, loud, brilliant girl turned around after class and asked to borrow a pen, I think a part of me fell in love before she even finished the sentence. We started dating a few months later, and the corny truth is that things just clicked. We finished each other's coffee orders. We had inside jokes by the 3rd date. She balanced me out, pulled me out of my shell, dragged me to parties I would never have gone to alone, made me braver. And I like to think I balanced her too. I was the one who'd hold her hand when her loudness was really just nerves underneath. I was the one who remembered to text her good morning every single day for 5 years. We talked about the future the way you do when you're young and certain. The house, the dog, the kids, the whole imagined life laid out in front of us like a map. So when I proposed at Christmas, kneeling in front of the tree with my grandmother's ring shaking in my hand, and she said yes, I genuinely believed I was the luckiest man alive. Her parents cried. My parents cried. I cried. Obviously, I cry at commercials, so a marriage proposal was never going to leave me dry-eyed. For about 2 weeks, everything was perfect. We were floating. We'd lie in bed at night and whisper plans to each other in the dark. And I felt closer to her than I'd ever felt to another human being. Here's something I've never been embarrassed to admit. I dreamed about my wedding for a long time. Longer than is probably considered normal for a guy. I think about the lighting, the music, the moment the doors open and everyone stands. Some men dream about the bachelor party. I dreamed about the first dance. So when the engagement settled in and the planning began, I came to the table absolutely bursting with ideas, ready to build this beautiful thing together. I knew there'd have to be compromise. I knew it couldn't be all my vision. That would be insane. It was her wedding too. A little of what I wanted, a little of what she wanted, meeting somewhere in the middle. That's a marriage, right? That's the whole point. At first, it really did seem like she was open to that. We'd sit at the kitchen table with a notebook and toss ideas back and forth. I'd suggest a string quartet for the ceremony. She'd suggest a jazz band for the reception. We'd both light up and say both. Let's do both. Those early nights gave me no warning at all of what was coming. If anything, they made the fall hurt worse because I had proof that the partnership I wanted was possible. I'd seen it. I'd held it in my hands for a few short evenings. But somewhere in those first few weeks, the ground shifted under me so gradually that I didn't notice it happening. Vanessa got, there's no other word for it, pushy. Every suggestion I made started getting waved away. Not all of them, to be fair. The small stuff, the stuff that didn't matter, she'd happily let me have. What suit I'd wear. Which 2 songs from a list of 40 we could play at the reception. The font on the table cards, maybe. But anything with weight, the venue, the guest list, the date, the theme, the budget, the actual shape of the day, that was hers now. She'd taken it, and she hadn't even told me she was taking it. It just quietly became true. Meanwhile, she was on fire with excitement. Every day, there was a new idea, a new Pinterest board, a new color palette, and she'd recruited what felt like an entire army to help her. Her best friends, her cousins, her aunts, her coworkers, this rotating cast of women who'd come over and sit in our living room with wine and laptops, planning my wedding without me in the room. I'd come home from work and find 4 of them huddled around a coffee table, and I'd say hello, and they'd say hello back, polite, friendly even, and then go right back to the spreadsheet I wasn't allowed to touch. I started feeling like a guest in the planning of my own marriage. Like I'd wandered into a party I wasn't invited to, but was too polite to leave. I brought up, I want you to know that. I didn't just stew in silence and expect her to read my mind. More than once, I told her gently that I felt left out, that I wanted to be more involved. And every single time, she had the same answer, delivered with this breezy little smile. Oh, it's just brainstorming. That phrase, it's just brainstorming. As if the entire wedding was being assembled out of casual chatter that I was somehow free to join at any time, when the truth was that decisions were being made and locked in, and I was only ever told about them after the fact. It bothered me. It bothered me more than I let on, because I didn't want to be difficult, didn't want to be the nagging fiancé, didn't want to confirm whatever story she was telling herself about me. So I swallowed it. Again and again. I swallowed it until I couldn't anymore. It all came to a head on a Wednesday. I remember it was a Wednesday, because Wednesdays were the only weeknight I got home before her, and that day, for once, she beat me there. I walked in the door, still in my work clothes, bag still on my shoulder, and she came practically running at me, glowing, vibrating with excitement, her phone already out. "We found it," she said. "We found the perfect venue. Wait till you see this." And for one beautiful second, my heart lifted because that we sounded like it might include me. Then she handed me the phone. It was a ballroom. A big, gaudy, golden crystal ballroom in a hotel downtown. The kind of place that hosts 3 weddings a weekend and a corporate conference on Monday. Chandeliers the size of cars. Carpet with a pattern that hurt to look at. It was in every conceivable way the opposite of what I had talked about wanting. We talked about something outdoors. Something with string lights and old trees and a little imperfection to it. Somewhere that felt like us. This place felt like a casino lobby. And I made the mistake, and I do think now it was a mistake, not because I was wrong, but because of how she'd react, of being honest. I said carefully, "It's beautiful, but it's not really to my taste. It's pretty different from what we said we wanted." She brushed it off without even blinking. And then she said the thing. She laughed, this light little dismissive laugh, and said, "You just don't really understand weddings. You're a guy." And she said it like it was obvious, like it was just a fact of nature, like the sky is blue and men don't understand weddings. That one landed somewhere deep, because I'd spent my whole life being told I was too soft, too feminine, too emotional to be a real man. And now here was the woman I loved using my own manhood against me as a way to disqualify my opinion. It hurt coming and going. I told her that hurt, and she rolled her eyes and said, "It was a joke. Don't take everything so seriously." Maybe it was a joke. She was smiling when she said it. But I've learned that it was just a joke is what people say when they want to land a punch and not be charged for it. That's when I decided I couldn't keep swallowing it. I set my bag down. I sat on the edge of the couch, and I told her, plainly, the way I'd been too scared to before, "I want to plan this wedding with you. Really plan it." I thought I'd made that clear. I feel completely left out, and it's making me miserable. I actually thought that hearing it laid out like that would soften her. That she'd realize, oh, I've been hurting him, let me fix this. That's the kind of thing I would have done. That's the kind of thing I assumed everyone would do. Instead, she tilted her head, and with the patience of someone explaining something to a child, she said, "Okay, you can help, but this is still my big day, so I get to make the major decisions." And something in my chest just dropped. I said, "It's my big day too. It's our wedding." And she said, and I will hear this in my head for the rest of my life, "No, sweetie, the wedding is all about the bride. This is my one day to be a princess." A princess. 26 years old, a college-educated woman I'd admired for being the smartest person in every room. And she was telling me, dead serious, that our marriage ceremony was her chance to be a princess, and my job was to stand there in the suit she picked and not ruin it. I told her she was making me feel like I didn't matter, like I was a prop, like I was the guy who shows up in the photos but doesn't get a say in his own life. And that's when she laughed, really laughed, and said the line I opened with. "Of course you matter. Why else would I have agreed to marry you?" And then she added, like it should cheer me up, "Besides, you get to help plan my big day. You should be happy." She said it the way you toss a treat to a dog. "Be happy. You got a scrap. What more do you want?" I started crying. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. The tears just came, hot and humiliating, right there in our living room. And her face, that's the part that haunts me. Her face didn't change at all. No alarm, no softening, no "oh no, what undone." Just mild irritation, like my crying was one more inconvenient thing she'd have to manage. And that nonchalance, that total absence of concern, was somehow worse than anything she'd actually said. I excused myself. I literally said, "Excuse me," to the woman I was going to marry, like a stranger, and I went into our bedroom, and I got into bed in my work clothes, and I cried until I couldn't anymore. She didn't follow me. She didn't knock. I lay there in the dark, hearing her on the phone in the other room, to one of the friends, probably recapping the night, and I felt more alone than I'd ever felt with someone I loved sleeping in the same house. I want to stop here and ask you something, because I've gone over this moment 1,000 times. What would you have done in this situation? Let me know in the comments. Because I lay in that bed all night and into the morning, replaying it, trying to figure out if I was the unreasonable one. Was I being a baby? Was I making her big day about me? Or was something genuinely, deeply wrong? Something that had been there the whole time, and I'd been too in love to see it? I called in late to work the next morning. I couldn't face anyone with my eyes that swollen. And once my head finally cleared, I did the thing I always do when I'm spiraling. I wrote it all out. Every detail, every word she'd said, everything I'd felt, just to get it out of my skull and onto a page where I could look at it. And as I wrote, something started to crystallize. Reading my own account back, in black and white, stripped of the love and the history and the 5 years of good days, the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't about a venue. The venue was just a moment the mask slipped. This was about a woman who decided that her wants were the only wants in the marriage that counted, and a man who'd been trained his whole life to make himself small to keep the peace. I talked to a few people I trusted. I won't pretend they all said the same thing. Some thought I was overreacting, said all brides get a little crazy during planning, said give her grace, it's a stressful time. But a couple of them, the ones who knew me best, got very quiet and very serious, and one of them said something I haven't been able to shake. She said, "It's not about the wedding. Listen to how she talks about you. Is that how someone talks about a person they respect?" And I sat with that. Respect. Not love. I never doubted she loved me in her way. Respect was the thing missing. You can love someone and still think their feelings are an inconvenience. I was learning that the hard way. So on Sunday evening, I asked her to sit down and talk. No friends in the house. No phones out. Just us. And to her credit, I want to be fair to her, even now, she listened. I walked her through everything. How cut out I felt, how the "you're a man" comment had wounded me, how the all about the bride stuff made me feel like a guest at my own wedding, and more than that, like I'd be a guest in our whole marriage. I told her I thought we should do premarital counseling before we set a date. And she apologized. She actually said the words, "I'm sorry." She agreed to counseling, reluctantly, with a face like she was swallowing medicine, but she agreed. And she agreed to genuinely co-plan the wedding with me. 50-50, real input, real veto power. For about an hour, I let myself believe it had worked. We pulled out the notebook again, the one from those good early nights, and we started sketching a rough master plan that pulled from both of our ideas. Her ballroom energy softened with my string lights and old trees, a compromise that on paper could have actually been beautiful. I remember feeling this fragile, careful hope, like holding a baby bird. Maybe we just had a fight. Maybe every couple has the fight where they figure out the rules. Maybe this was ours and we'd come out stronger. But then I made one more suggestion and it broke everything open. I said gently, "What if we push the date back a little? Gave ourselves time to do the counseling, time to get this right, no rush." We'd never even set a firm date, so I thought it was a small ask. And the second the word postpone left my mouth, her whole body changed. She went rigid. Her jaw set. "No," she said, "I want to get married now. Not, I can't wait to be your wife. Not, I don't want to wait to start our life. Just now. I want it now." And she said it with a kind of urgency that had nothing to do with love and everything to do with not wanting to be told she couldn't have a thing the instant she wanted it. It was, and I'm sorry, but it was exactly the tone of a child being told to put the toy back on the shelf. I managed to calm her down by promising we'd marry soon, and we went to bed, and the surface was smooth again. But underneath, I couldn't stop the thought that had taken root. What if she'd only agreed to all of it? The counseling, the co-planning, the apology, to placate me, to smooth me over and get the wedding back on track so that she could go right on running the whole show, not just for this one day, but for the entire life we'd build together? What if the real reason she wanted to marry now was that some part of her knew that if she waited, if she let the doubt breathe, I might wake up? I lay there next to her, listening to her breathe, and I felt the bird in my hands go cold. If you're enjoying this story, hit that subscribe button. We post new stories every day. Because what happened next is the part one still have trouble saying out loud. The part where I found out exactly who I'd almost married. Around midnight, I couldn't take it anymore. The doubt had grown teeth. I woke her, or maybe she was already awake, I don't know, and I told her everything I'd been thinking. I told her I wasn't sure her apology had been sincere. I told her I was afraid she'd only agreed to my terms to manage me. And then I asked the question that I'd been too frightened to ask for weeks, the one underneath all the others. Do you actually want to marry me? Or do you just want to get married? She lost it. I mean, she came apart in a way I had never seen in 5 years. She sat up, and she started yelling that I obviously didn't love her, that I was just trying to guilt her into giving me everything I wanted all the time, that I was selfish, manipulative. And then, out of absolutely nowhere, she accused me of cheating on her. Me, the guy who texted good morning every day for 5 years. I was so blindsided I couldn't even form words. And then she went somewhere I never could have predicted. She started on men. All men. She said men are selfish pigs who only put up with women to get sex, who never actually commit to giving women what they want and deserve, who are all the same underneath. She was painting me with this enormous, ugly brush, this whole worldview I'd never once heard her express in 5 years, and I realized I was hearing what she actually believed, or what she decided to believe in that moment to make me the villain. Either way, I was looking a stranger. I think I was crying. Honestly, I don't fully remember. The whole thing has a smeared, underwater quality in my memory, the way traumatic things do. I remember the lamp was on. I remember her face was red and twisted in a way I'd never seen. I remember being too stunned to defend myself, just sitting there absorbing blow after blow, this person I'd loved with my whole heart telling me what a monster I was for the crime of asking whether she loved me back. And then she delivered the ultimatum. She said if I didn't apologize to her for doubting her, she would break up with me. Right then, that night. And here's the thing. I didn't apologize. I want to tell you I made some grand decision, that I stood up and gave a speech about self-respect. I didn't. I just ran out of fight. I've been crying and absorbing and shrinking for weeks. And in that moment, I had nothing left to shrink with. So I just sat there, silent, and I let her break up with me. I let the woman I was going to marry end us, because some small surviving part of me had finally heard, underneath all the screaming, the answer to my question. She didn't want to marry me. She wanted to get married, and I had been the most convenient way to do it. The Vanessa I'd fallen in love with, the fearless girl from the lecture hall, had evaporated right in front of me, and I don't think she was ever fully real to begin with. I think I'd loved a version of her I'd built in my own gentle, hopeful head. She kicked me out that night. Our apartment, the one with both our names on the lease, the one with my books on the shelf and my grandmother's ring now sitting on the kitchen counter where she'd left it, she told me to get out, and I went. I packed a bag in the dark with my hand shaking, and I drove to a hotel at 1 a.m, and I checked in with my eyes swollen and my voice gone, and the poor kid at the desk pretended not to notice. I got into a bed that smelled like industrial bleach, and I called in sick to work the next day, and I lay there. That's it. That's all I did for an entire day. I lay in a hotel bed and sobbed until my body simply couldn't produce anymore. And then I lay there empty, staring at the popcorn ceiling, trying to understand how a life I'd spent 5 years building had detonated in 72 hours. And then it got worse because of course it did. I made the mistake of looking at my phone. Vanessa and her whole army of friends had taken to social media, and they were telling a very different story than the one I'd lived. According to them, I had betrayed her. I had abandoned her right before her wedding. I was the cold, selfish man who'd shattered the heart of a sweet, excited bride for no reason at all. The posts were everywhere. dripping with sympathy for her and venom for me. A couple of her friends weren't satisfied with public posts. They messaged me directly to tell me what an absolute piece of garbage I was, how I'd ruined her life, how she deserved so much better. I read every word. I couldn't stop myself. Each message was another stone, and I just kept picking them up and putting them in my pockets and sinking. But here's the turn I never saw coming, the one thing that pulled me up off the bottom of that hotel bed. Her parents. I'd always been close with Vanessa's mom and dad, genuinely close, the kind of close where her dad and I would text about the game and her mom would send me recipes. And when those posts went up, painting me as the villain, they didn't stay silent. They publicly commented on their own daughter's posts, defending me. In front of all those friends, all those relatives, they said that I was a good man and that whatever had happened, I didn't deserve what was being said about me. And then, that afternoon, my phone rang, and it was her mother, and she was crying, and she apologized. She apologized to me for her own daughter's behavior. She said, "Sweetheart, this is not your fault. We've seen this in her before, and we should have warned you, and I am so sorry." And her dad got on the phone and said, simply, "You're a good kid. Don't let her or her friends tell you otherwise." I broke down all over again, but it was a different kind of crying. Because for days I'd been drowning in a story where I was the monster, and the two people who'd known Vanessa her entire life, who'd raised her, who loved her more than anyone on earth, had just looked at the wreckage and told me, "No, you're not the monster. You're the one who got hurt." They saw it. They'd seen it long before I did. And that was the thing that finally let me start to climb out. Not because it made the pain smaller, but because it meant I wasn't crazy. I hadn't imagined the controlling, the dismissiveness, the way my feelings had been treated like obstacles. People who loved her had watched it happen and were grieving for me. I want to ask you this, now that you know how it ended. Drop a comment below. Do you think they made the right call? Did I make the right call, letting it end instead of apologizing for something I didn't do? Did her parents do the right thing, defending me over their own daughter in public? I genuinely don't know if there's a clean answer. I just know what it cost. In the weeks that followed, I moved into a small place of my own. I went to a few therapy sessions. The counseling I'd wanted for us, I ended up doing alone, which has a bleak kind of poetry to it. My therapist helped me see something I'd been too close to see myself. That the reason it had taken me so long to recognize the disrespect was that I'd been groomed my whole life to accept it. This softy, this sensitive one, the man who was always a little less of a man. I've been told so often that my feelings were too much that when someone treated them as nothing, it felt almost familiar. Almost like home. Vanessa hadn't created that wound. She just found it and pressed on it again and again, and I called it love because I didn't know what else to call the feeling of being needed by someone who didn't fully see me. I think about the version of my life where I apologized that night, where I swallowed it one more time, said sorry for doubting her, and married her soon the way she wanted. I think about being 35, 40, 50 in a marriage where the wedding had been a fair warning I chose to ignore, every major decision hers, my objections dismissed as me not understanding, my tears treated as an inconvenience, a whole life lived as a prop in someone else's production. The wedding was never really about the wedding. It was a preview. She'd shown me, in the clearest terms she could, exactly how the marriage would go, and I'd very nearly thanked her for the privilege. It's been a while now, and I won't pretend I'm fully healed because I don't think you ever fully heal from giving 5 years of your heart to someone and finding out they saw you as furniture. But I've stopped flinching when I remember it. Her parents still checking on me, which is its own strange, tender thing. I lost a fiancé, but somehow kept a mother and father who treat me kinder than my own ever did about my softness. And the part of me that dreamed about the perfect wedding, the string lights and the old trees and the first dance, it's still there. I haven't let her take that. I just understand now that the dream was never about the flowers or the venue. It was about standing across from someone who looks at you like you matter. Not because you're useful, not because you're convenient, but because they see you, all of you, the soft parts included, and they're glad. I almost married someone who couldn't do that. And the bravest, most unmanly thing I ever did was let her walk away, rather than spend my life apologizing for being a person who feels things. If there's anything I've taken from all of it, It's this: pay attention to how someone treats your smallest objections, because that's how they'll treat your largest needs. When I told Vanessa I felt left out, she heard an inconvenience. When I told her I was hurt, she heard a joke I couldn't take. The wedding wasn't the problem. The wedding was the warning. And the day I finally listened to it, sobbing, broken, alone in a hotel bed, was the day I started, finally, to belong to myself again. Hey, we're pushing toward 1,000 subscribers on this channel, and your support is the only reason we are anywhere close. If you're not subscribed, please tap that button. Thanks for making this dream come true.